Well, that's our next conversation this morning. Of course, there are those who are saying, wait, this fuel crisis could be exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine crisis, but we're not going there right now. Let's stick with the ones that is local. There are those who say, while that report speaks to both sides of the divide, where there are good fuel supply in some areas, there are those areas that they still have, quite significant queues. But yet, there are other communities that do not have any of these fuel supply at all, and one is wondering exactly what is happening. All of that in the mix of the blame game. It's your fault, it's not my fault. We supplied fuel to spec, so where did this off-spec fuel come from? All of these, we'll have to have this conversation with two gentlemen who joined us online this morning. Igwe Acheze is immediate past president of NUPENG. He joins us from Port Harcourt, alongside Peter Esele, who is former president, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association, PENGASSAN, and former president, Trade Union Congress. He joins us from Benin City. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Acheze. This blame game is happening, and I don't know, first of all, from all that you know, where's all of these coming from? Is this normal? Is it normal for us to have this kind of back and forth, the blame game over such thing that is supposed to be simple?
Well, thank you for having me this morning on this very important issue that borders on the economy of this great nation. It's very unfortunate that each time we have challenges like this, we keep hearing a blame game that goes back and front. But to be honest, until we turn the hand of the clock in holding people responsible and accountable in whatever decisions they make, what has happened rightly is a lack of responsibility from the regulatory agencies vis-a-vis those who monitor the product, those who also sign the various documents that allow this product to come into our country, Nigeria, for circulation. That has also impacted us this way. If it is, you will agree with me, if it is an international community or a well-developed nation, it's expected that those who are involved should have by now resigned their offices for lack of responsibility that has also caused this nation these hard pains that we're going through. So for me, the agencies are to be held responsible.
Let me ask Mr. Esele perhaps the same question, but from your perspective and from your understanding of things that have happened in this sector over time, where, in your opinion, did this gap, or could this gap have come from? There are those who say in the days of the DPR, they would have done the needful. But then some of these, people who supply this fuel say they did the needful. Even the new regulatory agency can confirm that they supplied fuel to spec. And now this.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. First thing is, let's look at the foundation of who we are as a people. I always like to look at the causes and not the effect. Now, what is the cause? The cause is this is who we are. We do things shabbily. Therefore, we've had these issues in the past. Remember, I think in the days of Abacha and the military government, we also had petroleum product that was brought into the country that has high sulfur content. Now, this is very clear. It's easy for you to decide whose fault this is. One, whoever brought in this product is responsible for that. First, what is our spec? Our spec is about 5% methanol, not higher than 5% methanol. What we have right now is 20% methanol. There are other countries that do between 2 to 3% methanol. So what we have is 20% methanol. And why do we have 20% methanol? Who was supposed to check that? Now we're also supposed to have Standard Organization of Nigeria. So what you have is a collapse in terms of those who are supposed to oversee what is there. And the danger is, if we don't check this now, there's only one body bringing in, one agency bringing in products to the country, and that is NNPC. So let's assume you now deregulate that sector. Every marketer can bring in products. So if we cannot even check a single entity bringing in product, just imagine what will happen when every marketer start bringing in product? Who will now carry out those various checks to make sure that we actually get spec? Our spec is sent to the country.
Mr. Esele, you know, it's interesting, for want of a better word, when you say that it's only one agency that is supposed to be bringing it in. So where are all these other names coming from? Duke Oil is talking, O&O PLC is talking. Meanwhile, NNPC is supposed to be the sole importing organization of petrol into the country. Help us understand.
Now, what NNPC is doing is, NNPC is the one that we all see. So NNPC is the one that is head responsible, is chosen by the government to bring in the product. So Duke Oil, O&O, those are all contractors for NNPC to help get in the product. So if Duke Oil and O&O, the MROS or whoever are bringing in this product, so it's expected that NNPC, all the regulators, are expected to go through it and notice who is bringing it. Let's take, for example, you deregulate. You have Chase and Sons bringing in product. You have Ijoma bringing in product. You have John, and you're going to have more than 20 or 30 people now bringing in product. My worry is when we get to that bridge, if we cannot even regulate or check what 2 or 3 agents, O&O or MROS is bringing in, so how are we going to do that? So there's
the question here, I get that, but the question here, the challenge here, in my opinion, is, okay, right now, from what you're saying, as you said earlier, the only organization many people have known over time has been the NNPC. One then is wondering, is the NNPC taking responsibility? Is the NNPC coming ahead of this one, getting ahead of this one and saying, it's our bit?
Yes, NNPC should, I read their response, apologizing to Nigerians. But that's not enough. Now, NNPC have apologized to Nigerians. Now, we also now need to know who brought in the off-spec. If it's O&O, if it's MROS, then they have to also face the music. Because just as Igwe has alluded to, everyone along the chain must be held accountable. Because even cleaning the dirty petrol is going to cost not less than 100 billion for you to do that. So that in itself is cost. So who is going to bear that cost? In other parts of the world, we'll be talking about what they will be paying. And then if I've read the various reports, and I think it's very embarrassing. I read the statement from O&O MROS, and I also read the ones that came from NNPC, which was everybody trying to pass the buck. That's not the issue. The issue now is we need to know who is responsible, and whoever is responsible must be held accountable.
Well, just to be clear, Mr. Sele, help us understand the process. We've listened to a number of other people, but perhaps just to have a little bit more clarity on this. What's the process when fuel gets, is it at the point it gets into Nigeria that we begin the test? Because we've received, you've also read all the reports, just as you've said. This one is saying it's not our fault, we supplied to spec, so person checked it, so agency checked it. Everyone is saying all relevant agencies checked it. And then we still have this. So what's the process? At what point are the checks supposed to be done before they get to the fuel tanks that supply to the people?
Most of our product comes from process. So what is expected is that is even before loading, you're supposed to get your spec. The various tests are supposed to be conducted. And when you also arrived in this country, another test is also supposed to be conducted. So there are agencies of government that are responsible for those tests. Even NNPC, the various regulators, you alluded to it, DPRO was still DPRO. No, it's still DPRO. Just, as far as I'm concerned, they mainly just change the name. So that is the process. The process is test in process, test in Nigeria to confirm that you meet our specification. Now, if marketers are saying or importers are saying that is not our spec, then we now need to go back to look at what have we been bringing into the country in the past, and why are we now having off spec instead of spec? So once we go through all of that, then we will help us to get to the bottom of this problem. If we don't get to the bottom of this problem, it's going to be worse when the market is deregulated.
Well, while we try to reconnect with Mr. Igwe Achese, the immediate past president of NUPENG, let me continue with you, Mr. Sele. Getting to the bottom of this, I mean, it sounds like rocket science. The House is investigating the executive is investigating, NNPC is investigating, and the Minister of State for Petroleum. In fact, the Minister for Petroleum, the President, is also said to be interested in this as well. And you'll expect that getting to the bottom of it will be swift, seeing all the weight coming up on this one. But the names that have been mentioned, that have been thrown up, all of them have said, well, they did what was right. In fact, some say they have documents to prove that these products were tested and, it met specifications and all of that. So with all these denials, who should be doing what right now? Is it government that should be coming up to say, well, fine, we dropped the ball or what? Because it appears as though everyone is sitting back and saying, it's not my fault. So who should be doing what right now?
I think the first thing is, if the government knows they are right, the government knows who's wrong. They know where this problem is. But the fact is, the usual way that we address issues in this country, which is personal interest above every other interest. Because if we are to look at national interest, in a week you will know who is wrong. NNPC involved, NNPC will know who is supposed to carry out those checks. The various agencies of the state, they know. So our politics of looking at things from man, let me quote it, man no man, is what is actually dragging us back. There is no issue of government setting up. One thing is clear. When they start setting up committees such as that, is that they want the matter to go away. So it is not incumbent on the media to always shed light on it. Now, if Mr. A is wrong, bring out the document. Let the media see the document. Let us see it on Channels TV and say, this is the document that was brought in. Let Owando MROS. This Owando is listed on the stock exchange. And it's very important for it to clear its name. So it can come out, Owando can come out and say, okay, this is what we supplied. And these are the spec we supplied. And these are the spec we have been supplying. And that way, Owando clears his name. But for everybody to come and say, oh, I did the right thing or I did the wrong thing, it's very easy to know who did what. Bring the documents, bring your facts, and let's see. And then let the press see it, because the press is the fourth estate of the realm. So if anything is done in secret, that means something is wrong. Government is not run in secret.
Right. We have Mr. Achese back now, thankfully. So, Mr. Achese, help us understand how the heavyweights in this industry operate, because it looks like there are powers that are even beyond the government. Because clearly, we've seen government move fast on other issues, and almost immediately there's some sort of, court process, arrest, investigation, and, things move very fast. We've seen government do that. But in this case, things have been moving so slow, and it appears as though they're trying to just push this into irrelevance. So, do we indeed, as has been said, have, powers that be, as it were, in this sector, and we might not see anything come out of this?
Let me be honest to Nigerians. It's very sad and painful that we have the Minister of Petroleum who serves also as the president of this great country. And so when you say powers that be, it means that inclusive, on the line, inclusive, the president of this great country should also be held accountable and responsible in whatever difficult challenges we're facing today in the areas of the petroleum industry that powers the nation's economy. You will agree with me that when you say power that's big, the president is involved, he's the minister of petroleum, despite you having the minister of states under his, under him. He is the minister, so he should be held also responsible. Now, if the president himself is to take responsibility of what has happened, if he is to take responsibility of what has happened, it means it's for him to do the needful, no matter who gossip it is, whether the GMD of NNPC, whether the Minister of State that serves under him is involved, whoever that is involved, being, such individuals or group of persons should be brought to book. That is the only way we can begin to say the issue of power that be does not play out. Otherwise, where we find ourselves today as a nation, where the president of the country serves as the Minister of Petroleum, and we're having this kind of challenges and difficult situation in the history of our nation, as the sixth, highest producer of hydrocarbon and gas, then there is something wrong with us. So for me, I would say power that be is a key issue, but if the president wants to clear his name in the issues of this, this untransparency that has cost us this pains as a nation, then he should take the right decision in bringing those involved to book. It's not just waiting for investigation. Before you take investigation, fire them. They should be fired, and then you can set up whatever investigation to investigate what actually happened for us as a nation to find ourselves in this kind of situation. It's sad. It's sad, my brothers.
And you know, the concern is that this might happen again and again and again, and people will go scot-free because there were no repercussions this time around. So if we can perhaps help prod rather the government in the direction to go into, what documents should we be looking out for that might perhaps tell us a story? What areas should we be looking into? Should the government now be looking into? Maybe at least from this conversation, government can take a cue if it hasn't already, and do what is right by Nigerians. So where should they be looking into to get the answers?
Well, it's clear, the documents are there. The document that was approved for the importation of this product from Brussels, the document, those who also approved, there are, the processes of testing and laboratory clearance are there. So if this clearance is from NNPC, because NNPC is involved, the regulatory agencies are also involved, PPMC that are also key stakers of this product are also involved. So if every agency, because if you look at that document of approval, about also giving the right to say this product should go out into the market for distribution, then you will find out all those who are involved. Mr. President is there as a minister, and so it's only that this document, is it approved, yes, he signs off. Now, the GMD, if he signs on behalf of the minister, if the Minister of State also signed on behalf of the minister, who is the president of this nation, should also be held accountable. So the documents are clear, they are transparent, they are visible, they are not hidden. And so you can see the various, companies involved, vis-a-vis or Ando, MROS, coming to clear themselves that they passed through the processes and they meet the standard. And if they did not meet the standard, these government agencies, regulatory agencies, wouldn't have approved it for them. And so if they do, then there is issues of transparency. There's an issue of corruption that is also so endemic in all that must be checked and controlled. If we don't, it will repeat itself. This is not the first time, it is not the second time, it's not the third time, and it will not be the last if we don't take drastic actions. Like I did mention, Mr. President should clear his name as the Minister of Petroleum in taking the drastic steps that Nigerians are yearning and expecting to see.
Well, Mr. Esele, you said earlier something that is, interesting along the line of what needs to be done, going forward. So, if you can take that a little further, what now should people be looking out for in this matter? You said agencies. If right now we're only talking about 2 organizations, and we're having this kind of challenge. Yet we are talking about a fully deregulated petroleum industry, in which, of course, will speak to removal of fuel subsidy and then complete deregulation, so as many people as may want to bring in fuel into the country will be able to bring in fuel into the country. Refineries will work, and they will be able to produce fuel at home and all of that. So if we are going to solve this problem long term, and we go into a fully deregulated sector, what are the things that we need to put in place now? What are the gaps that you have seen from this experience? And if we are to solve this problem long term, what are the things that you think we need to do urgently?
First thing is strengthening capacity. First, we have to carry out an audit.
When you say strengthening capacity, in what, whose capacity now?
Now, first of all, the regulators, first you have to do an audit. The first audit you have to do is to find out what is responsible for what is happening right now. So once you carry out that audit, you now find out that who is in charge. You see, it's not just, yes, the president needs to do something, but we need to find out that you work for channels. I'm not expecting Joe Momo to come to channels at 8 a.m. and come and interview Igwe and Peter Esele. No. That's your job designation. You are responsible for this interview. That is why you are seated there. So we need to find out who is that person responsible for signing off, and who is also that person responsible for ensuring that this product is moved from point A to point B. The president delegated his authority to various agencies to now carry out such function. So you go for that first to find out, are there certain inadequacies? Do they lack capacity to do what they are supposed to do? The laboratories, are they properly equipped? That's point number one. Point number two, you want to open it up. We have Standard Organization of Nigeria. Now, what is Standard Organization of Nigeria doing? If we are talking about spec, it's not only regulators, Standard Organization of Nigeria is also make sure that what is coming to this country also meets our standard, and that includes petroleum products. That's another aspect you also need to look at. And you ask yourself, when are we going to meet local refinery demand? It's an embarrassment. It is sad that from 1999 to 2022, we cannot fix 4 refineries. 4 refineries have not been fixed, so we cannot meet our local demands. Therefore, we are facing this challenge. So what do? Fix our refineries, ensures that we meet our local demand. Hopefully, let's hope the private sector driven local refinery for about 600,000 barrels will come on stream and help us to meet our local demands. And then we will not have this off-spec that is coming in from Brussels. That will also help. And then when you now have a deregulated market, ordinarily we are supposed to be in charge of the West African coast. And if I'm to take this thing a little bit further, what this opened my eyes to is that just as we have dirty petroleum products, it's also possible that we have dirty food that we consume that endanger our health. Because nobody, this one is very clear, that nobody is even interested in what I'll call the national interest. I will also take you back. Don't forget that the last time we're trying to know how the consumption of rice in this country, we had to get part of our data from Indonesia. So now, how are we even sure that the data, as Igwe spoke to that earlier, when he talked about all the records are there, are we even sure that the records are there? Are we sure that people are really know that this is their job? This is what they are paid for. This is what they are meant to do.
Okay, Mr. Esele. Oh, it's an endless conversation almost, but speak to this same question in the light of the petroleum industry law that's active already. So part of the recommendations of the law is a fully deregulated sector. Is that to say, is this experience, this example that you've given, and this example that is happening to us now, this experience we're having, is it to say that we are not ready for the full implementation of that law?
We are not ready. I think I had done an interview to that.
We're not ready. We're not ready.
Even on channels, we're not ready. You see, we always do everything as if government is ad hoc. Government is systemic. Government is a process. You don't wake up and just make laws. It's a process. You go step by step. Now, how do you even imagine that you just sign the petroleum industry, you sign a law to the...
Okay, well, we'll try to reconnect with Mr. Esele. But interestingly, Mr. Chese seems to agree with that response. So let's take this to Mr. Chese now and get, his perhaps a conclusion of what Mr. Esele started on, whether or not we're ready for the implementation of the PIA. But don't forget, we already have the NMDPRA, which is in the PIA, and the authority and the commission and some other things. So why do you say we're not ready, Mr. Chese?
Honestly, we're not ready. You heard Peter Esele clearly. If you want to deregulate the system, it means our refineries are working. Our local consumption production capacity is okay. And that is when you can talk about deregulation and then saying that document is ready for us to implement and work with. We cannot, as long as this country is concerned and the way we're going about issues, to stay that we will deregulate on importation-driven economy. It is not done anywhere in the world. Nowhere in the world I will tell you we have hydrocarbon, crude oil and gas, and we are importing when we know that we have the capacity to refine our local consumption, and we are still dependent on the nation will do that. And so for us as a nation, if you hear today that this nation is going into deregulated driven economy, then it is corruption. It is corruption. Nothing beyond that. It is self-interest. It is to the detriment of the common man. It is the detriment to the middleman. And so we must begin to take into cognizance that there is nowhere in the world, no country runs our economy when it's like living in an ocean and using saliva to clean your face or wash your face. And that is the situation we find ourselves if you say we are already in the regulated economy. No, we cannot find ourselves in that situation. How much is the common man's worker salary today if you say you're going into the regulated import-driven economy? What is the worker salary? Have they been able to implement the only minimum wage that was negotiated recently? 30,000? It has never been implemented. The inflation capacity, inflation of this nation is on the high side. Inflation is driven very high, and then workers cannot even feed, 3 square meals a day. And so you are saying, let us continue to drive this economy in an import-driven way. It's not possible. And so we are not ready. We are not ready, as Peter Selle rightly mentioned. We're not ready for the PIA that was being passed. And so that is the situation we find ourselves today.
Well, isn't the PIA meant to help us get to that destination, as it were? I mean, that's the idea of a law, essentially, to help us know what to do, things not to do, and the things to do in order to achieve that. So isn't this still part of the journey? And I understand that Mr. Selle is back, so if you can conclude on that thought. But add to that the fact that a law is essentially meant to get us to where we ought to be. So it's a journey, as it were.
Yes, I'm not disputing that fact. It's a journey. A law is supposed to be a journey. But first of all, you have to look at the foundation. You have to look at the foundation of that law, because the way the law is now, you pass a law for the betterment of your country, for the welfare, for the promotion of the welfare of the citizens. Now, if the oil and gas is deregulated today, it is going to be based on importation, which means you are exporting jobs. You are exporting jobs and creating poverty for your people. And why will I say that? For every time you import petroleum products, you are ensuring that refineries in Europe are making more money. And then you're also ensuring that the refiners in Europe have their jobs, while the refiners in Nigeria have no jobs. So at the end, your laws are supposed to be a catalyst for growth, catalyst for employment, catalyst for social well-being and social cohesion. That is what laws are supposed to be. But if your laws don't fulfill any of that, then you are not ready. Then you are not ready for growth. So all we are doing is hard work.
Peter Selle, former president, Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, and former president, Trade Union Congress. Thank you so much for your time this morning, as well as Igwe Acheze, immediate past president of NUPENG. Both gentlemen who join us online, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning.